Welcome to another episode of Facebook Live with DSI for a Q&A session tonight with Dr. Shakila Angadi. Thanks for being here, Shakila.
Thank you for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
Oh, I've been really looking forward to this. And thank you all for tuning in out there in Facebook land. As you come in, if you could give us a hi, hello, and give us a post and let us know you're here, we'd love to welcome you. So please be sure and say hi to Shakila in the notes or in the posting. And I want to just jump right in tonight, Shakila, and share why I have why I had asked you to come and be a part of our Facebook Live. We've had some conversations and learned that you're very much an expert in the area of emotional intelligence, which I think is just fascinating and so important. And as I worked with more and more dental professionals over the years, I believe that this is something that's really timely and very helpful for dental professionals to be able to have some help in this area. And I'm going to ask you to tell us a little bit about you and what your experience as a dentist now. And I don't know if you call yourself an EQ coach or how you want to. You could let us know, but tell us.
I can explain all that. Yes,
tell us
absolutely
about your journey that brings you from dentist to where you are now.
Absolutely. So I am a dentist by trade, went to dental school, did the rigmarole, went into associateship right after dental school. And I thought I knew a lot, right? Like most dentists do. We thought we knew a lot. And I thought at a time where I just had my son, had my hands wet into dentistry for a couple of years, that I was ready to own a dental practice. Well, as fellow dentists out there, you know that that's never the case. You're never actually ready. I think as fellow business owners out there, not even dentists, you think you're ready, but there's still a lot you don't know. Well, that was me. There was a lot I didn't know. And I was shocked at how much I didn't know. And so with a new baby, a new business, I found myself in a really hard time in my life. I didn't know who to turn to. My husband's also in healthcare, and it became a very isolating time for me. I would probably call that one of my rock bottoms in my life, because in the age of where things are, it wasn't easy for me to reach for help. It wasn't easy for me to share that I was struggling. And so that feeling of isolation and being alone was really, really tough. And my journey of hitting rock bottom, getting tired of hitting rock bottom, getting tired of feeling tired. If anyone's felt like that, you know exactly what I'm talking about. That was me. And that was the best thing that happened to me, because I took that as I'm sick and tired of this. What do I do? How do I become happier? I got consulting. I did all the things that a business owner would do. And yet I still felt like things were missing. So it wasn't my business, right? Sometimes we think we're in business. It has to be the business that's the problem. The business is causing me misery. No, it wasn't the business at all. It was actually me. It was everything that I thought and knew and had learned. And ultimately that led me into a positive psychology field called emotional intelligence. And it fascinated me when I came across it and started reading into it and learning that my own emotions and my learned behaviors are the very thing that was preventing me from being happy. And as I dug into the field and hired a coach and started going through the process myself over that next year, literally everything in my life changed. My business was just shot up. My relationships improved. My relationship with my spouse improved. My parenting, every aspect of my life became more balanced and engaged. And that really was the initiative for me to go, wait a second, this has helped me practice happier, be happier, feel happier. What's going on in our field? So I started sharing things, and lo and behold, there's many, many dental professionals that struggle and still struggle with the same thing. So I went back and I actually got certified myself as a social and emotional intelligence coach. I am certified, so I am able to administer one of the best emotional intelligence tools on the market, which led me into coaching, which started as a hobby. And somewhere down the line, that hobby became something that inspired me so much for our field to give back, that I now work with dentists, coaches, and dental professionals to break the barriers of what we know and learn more effective, healthy tools to maximize our mindset. So it's an incredible journey. It's wonderful. And there's nothing that gives me more pleasure than to give the tools that someone needs to truly live a happier life. It's really, really wonderful.
That is wonderful. And I love that your journey, it's like the hero's journey, right? We go through the caverns, the dips,
Right.
the valleys, as we straight face our own demons and
Right.
fight to find happiness. And sometimes
Right.
it feels that way, but I love that you are able to then now turn around and help others with this. Emotional intelligence has been a topic that's fascinated me for years. And I've often thought, it would be so great if we could learn these concepts when we're kids, when we are in kindergarten, in those early years and all through. I think it would help us be happier individuals. And it's not about when I don't really care for the term in some regards, because it's not about someone being not as intelligent as the other,
Right.
but it's really about being more tapped in. And I love the term I read on your bio about helping healthcare professionals break through their individual fears and expectations and grow their emotional resilience. I thought, that really spoke to me as a busy business owner, but also having worked with literally hundreds of dental speakers, consultants, meeting planners over the years. I think that it's a very human issue as adults, especially those who are entrepreneurs. That we juggle a lot of balls. So could you start us out today by telling us, what are you seeing in the industry? Is like, what is the major challenge? If you could pinpoint one thing that you see with dental professionals specifically.
One thing I definitely see is an elevated level of stress. I mean, in this day and age, I think the baseline of our stress response is already elevated. And then we add a group of mostly type A, high achieving professionals with very high expectations into the blender, make that smoothie. And we realize it is more draining than we thought. And we don't realize that we are spending a lot of our lives running on an empty tank, and we're not quite sure how to fill that up. And it's interesting, you said something about, I wish we learned this when we were kids. I actually think kids are more dialed in to their emotional awareness, what they're feeling, how they're feeling it and expressing it. And somewhere along the lines of the responsibilities of growing up and the expectations of our surroundings, we seem to think that, or we seem to acquire the idea that it's not as important, when that skill, that human skill, is more important now than ever, because the drain that we see as adults, as speakers, as consultants, as dentists, whatever we're doing, we're very good at adding, and we're not very good at subtracting, literally basic arithmetic. We're not very good at subtracting and unlearning something that was useful to us to be able to be resilient as we move along the process. So this idea of stress being something we have to accept is, quite frankly, for me, now that I know the other side of it, unacceptable, because we can manage it better. And I think we become more productive and more effective when we manage it better.
Do you think a lot of it goes back to our little inner voices? I think about, for me as an adult, but also as a business owner or a parent, or a wife, we have these little, like you say, expectations. We have these ideals. We have these markers that we're trying to always measure up to.
Right.
Is that part of the challenge?
Absolutely. And what we have to realize is, in the human process, we acquire a lot, right? We acquire everything we know from our surroundings, including expectations. And that's not a bad thing. It's a survival skill. It's how we've gotten this far in life. But somebody else's expectations of us may or may not be beneficial to us as we go through life. And knowing, am I working this hard, or am I disappointed with something because I didn't meet my expectation, or did I not meet someone else? And there comes a point in our lives where we have to start thinking, whose is this? And if this is beneficial to me, yes, let me hold on to it. But if it's not, it can actually lead to more accelerated stress. And as we know, stress-induced diseases, we are in the age of stress-induced diseases where we don't realize we're sick until we are sick, both mentally, physically, and emotionally. And so when they all tie in together and we realize what's the cost of not being tapped into our awareness. I mean, well, emotional intelligence literally means the ability to be aware of your emotions at the time that you experience them. And that sounds simple, but it takes a lot of unlearning to understand what to do. It's not like intellectual intelligence, your IQ, that's what you're born with. But emotional intelligence, the cool thing about this field is we can actually grow it. Yeah. And when we grow it and we learn to be more aware, we start going, wait, I did that because that was important to this and this person, but is it really important to me? I'm not sure. Or what expectations am I putting on to the people that I teach or the family that I have? I mean, it goes into every aspect of our life. But yes, I think expectations have a huge thing, as well as fears. They're both really, really big roadblocks for us.
And I'd like to talk more about fears for sure. I have a question or two for you. I just want to call out and say hello. We've got several friends here online. Yay. We've got Susan Cotton. Hey, Susan. Thanks for joining us, Kristen, Paul. Thank you all for saying hello. And a reminder that we are doing a Q&A session here. So if you have a question for Shakila as we speak today, feel free to post that in the comments and we'll be sure and get that to her. And hopefully we'll have time. If you get it in early enough, we'll be able to get an answer during our time together. So we were talking just now about others' expectations, and then we have our own expectations, which I think it feels like many business owners tend to be, like you say, that type A driven, like, and don't care so much what other people think, but have like our own, like we're really in competition with ourselves.
Yes.
Yes. So tell me more about that inner voice, those fears, and specifically, how can we as dental speakers and many who are also consultants and business owners, how can we better come to grips with dealing with those inner expectations?
Absolutely. I think the first step to any emotional intelligence aspect, like expectations, is learning, just being aware of them. It's simply that. It sounds easy, it's harder to do, but where is this coming from? Why do I think this way? Being curious about why we think the way we think really brings to light a lot of predetermined thoughts, and challenging them. Well, is this what I really want? Does this line with my core values? Because the way, and I won't get too nerdy on you today for those who are watching, but I am very much a nerd when it comes to neuroplasticity and the way we think and how we can rewire it. But the thing that I find fascinating when it comes to expectations is, over a span of our childhood, we literally capture memories and experiences and lock them in as core values. So every time we put something in, every time we failed at something, every time we had a setback, we create a thought that sticks with us. And sometimes those thoughts translated into expectations become really difficult. So I think as a business owner, knowing, one, to be aware of them, and two, how to manage them. Do we learn? I go over with the clients that I take on with tools like learned resilience. How do we go through a process of knowing what's the best case scenario, the worst case scenario, and what's in between? How do we stop our mind from going on this autopilot, because that is what it is meant to do, and take a step back and learn how to respond better? These are all tools that I work with through my process of helping someone really, really maximize their EQ. And with what comes about, we have a lot of fears ingrained in us from those core values too. Fear of judgment, fear of failure. I mean, these are things that we're seeing across the human board, not just in the dental sector. But I do think in dentistry specifically, there is a high level of stress that's a constant from people we're dealing with, people that are listening to us, people that we're working with, that does end up being almost a contagious energy if we're not careful, to know that we need to be aware to help other people even more and not get I don't want to say sucked in, because that's not, but energy, I think, is contagious. And if we don't know who we are and what our purpose is, how can we stand true and not be into somebody else's survival instincts? And I'm talking fast because I love to give so much information on this. As I said, I'm such a nerd and proud of it. But it is an accelerated survival response. And that's really the biggest thing I see with those of us who are working so hard that can hold us back, those fears. Absolutely.
It makes me wonder, is there any tool or not recipe, formula, formula, or, years ago I had read something about when we catch ourselves saying, they shouldn't have done that, or you start to hear certain words in our vocabulary. It's like, that's kind of a trigger for me to know that I'm not reacting as emotionally, maturely, or resiliently as I could. Do you have any tips that I'm just bringing you on this?
Yeah. Oh, I love it. I love this conversation. I mean, there are so many tips, but I'll share the one that I know has worked best for me. And I didn't invent it, really. I really didn't. It's just repurposing it in the appropriate time. The tip that's helped me the most has really been the 5-second rule, counting backwards. Mel Robbins, anyone who has read that book, it's amazing. And if you haven't, the cliff notes are this: you count backwards from 5. I add a mindful breath. Oxygen is never a bad thing to have too much of, especially in moments where our mind is running a little faster than we are. And doing the combination of counting backwards plus the deep breath, we start to question why. And I think the second tip would be question it with curiosity, a really genuine, not judgmental curiosity. Oh, why am I thinking that? That's a very different conversation to have versus, wait, why am I thinking that? Because that second way is how we learn and how we grow past these self-imposed expectations that we've acquired along the way. Soul searching, it's not for the faint. It's not easy. When I have people that come to me and they say, how fast will I see change? And I said, well, how many things have you learned in all of your life that we need to unlearn to, embrace the season now? That's a loaded question. So I think that those two things, though, I think have been the most helpful for my clients and personally myself to catch me in that moment. Because if we think about how we work, we are automatically thinking of the worst case scenario. We are automatically hard on ourselves when something goes wrong. A presentation didn't go right. We flubbed a bit and we didn't say what we wanted to say, or there was a technical difficulty and it threw us off our game. What do we do in those moments? The worst thing we can do is let this thing take over our brains. And now we've completely reacted in a way that is not purposeful or useful. Instead of, let me take a minute. Okay, what's going on? Let me process it. Let me adjust what I need to think and move on for a better, more thoughtful approach.
But those are words for like life, right? It's not just your desk when you're spinning out. The presentation's not ready and tomorrow's the day. It's also the clerk at the store that was rude, the person cutting you off in traffic. It's just all the frustration. And I think I'm one of the worst.
I don't think you are.
I feel like that. Like my family will tease me. There's no filter. If I think it comes out my mouth. And I think that 5-second rule and combining that with a deep breath. Oh man, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. Thank you for that.
Yes. You're going to have to keep me posted on how it works. I would love to hear that.
It makes me think I need something to remind me, right? Because as you're mentioning, it goes back to habits. I'm a 55-year-old person who's got lots of years of habits. So I need a note on my computer. I need a note somewhere to remind me to breathe.
Right.
Good one. Just something simple, right? To remind us.
Yes.
As we're talking, it does make me think about some of the situations I've seen with some of the people I've worked with over the years where we can get caught up, and myself included, we get caught up in perfectionism. Again, it goes back to that whole idea of, this ideal of what you want to be in business. In fact, I had a conversation with someone today, I'm trying to tell this in a way that's not going to tell who it is, but it's personally in our life, a healthcare professional that we saw last week that had a human day. He was very exhausted by the end of the day.
Mm-hmm.
And I could tell, and we love him, and it was not a big deal. But today texted me back, and he was so worried he'd lost us as patients.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because and I think when we can just cut ourselves slack, that someday,
Mm-hmm.
and I told him, hey, you don't have to prove yourself to us, and I think we don't remember that always as business owners, or we feel like people are going to judge us.
Mm-hmm.
And so what do you have for us around that area? I assume that might be one of the fears.
Yes, absolutely. So the two fears that I see that holds almost all of us back is a fear of judgment and or a fear of failure. And, fear of judgment, yes, we are worried about what are people going to think of us, but really, I think a fear of judgment starts with a block of being vulnerable with yourself. What are you going to think of yourself? Who are you disappointing inside? Going back to, our expectation comments, it really does, reverberate off that, because we're not afraid of what people say when we're not afraid to say it to ourselves. But most of the time when we're projecting it to somebody else and we're afraid of what they're thinking, we are truly afraid of our own inner ideals of what we thought we should be, or how successful we should be, or how fast we could have done it. I mean, I did that. I still, to a small degree, even with all my work on myself and everything else, have moments where I'm like, what are people going to think? And then now in my journey, I ask myself, what does it matter what people think? Because it took some practice to unlearn how that fear was stopping me. And I don't know if they go away. I think we get better at managing them. I think that's probably the most honest way I could answer that. I think we get better at managing them. A fear of failure, it's super contagious in the dental world, from dentists to speakers to anybody who is trying with their whole hearts to do everything in their power to really do something super, super accurately. But perfectionism is really a fear of failure. And the thing we want to ask ourselves is, how much is that holding us back? And what happens when we fail? Because what we learn on the other side of that fear is that failure is room to grow. We know what doesn't work. We know what we could not have prevented. And a lot of the things that we want to prevent from happening are all out of our control. And so thinking about what we're trying to do, make a triangle, a circle, make different shapes, different colors, it becomes a very exhausting journey to constantly try to be perfect in every way and not put in what I call, flexible perfectionism. We can't go that route. We can aim to do the best we can. Hey, that's what makes us really great at what we do. Let's be honest, right? The fact that we're attention to detail, the people that we work with have attention to detail. That's a really great life skill to have. But to allow ourselves a realistic pace to fail and learn to examine that failure in a more constructive way, we really do evolve to better versions of ourselves when we think of our failures in that way, versus, oh my gosh, like, what am I going to do now? And now we're telling our story with our head, with our survival mindset of, this is it, my life is over. And now something that really was out of our control becomes, oh my God, how did this happen to me? If we all have friends, I'm not saying any of us are like that, but we all know people, right? You get where I'm going with this, that, they come to you and they go, oh my God, what am I going to do? This happened and this happened and this happened. And then this, and oh my gosh, I can't take this anymore. Who's talking? That's this automatic brain that is doing its job versus, okay, that really sucked. I'm acknowledging that, I'm accepting that, but now what can I learn from it? That's where the growth and evolving, happens.
And it really isn't evolving, isn't it? To recognize that, we know we want to have a vision for our life, and we want to have a strategy for our business, and we're going to set goals, and we're going to put dates to them. And we're shooting for this thing, and then life happens.
Right.
And it's about realizing that at least I have found to help me with my stress, if I can just let it go. What I find, we mentioned this earlier, is that like tends to attract like.
Mhm.
Like the people that work with me tend to be people that are like me, who are also super, super busy. So if like
Right.
I'm running a day late, or if I'm like 10 minutes late, they are too. You know, it's like
Right.
we tend to attract those people. So like if I cut myself a little bit of slack, then
Yes.
everybody's calmer. We find that we get the right result anyway, even if it
Yes.
was 2 weeks later,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
And then it just kind of all works out if we can just relax, breathe, count to
Yes.
5.
Yes. And I have another tool that
Yeah.
helps with this. It helped me a lot when I started doing this. Now I kind of do it automatically. But at the end of the day, instead of making a, oh my gosh, I didn't do this right, or this was horrible or whatnot, I like to make a what did I do great today, or what was amazing today list. Because even if it's only 3 things that went right, what went right in my day? That's kind of what it's transformed to for me personally. But putting that positive thought process into play right before we go to bed allows us for a really healthy dose of self-reflection on personal power. That's another EQ. I mean, most people don't realize that a lot of these personality traits are really emotional intelligence traits. And so when we start thinking, what did I do amazing today? What's going to make it into mine tonight? Is this interview right here, right? So, you know, like it can be as big or as little as you want, but having that little tool at the end of the day, and that is really where we grow our emotional intelligence. These little tools, cognitive behavioral therapy, just doing things slightly different, not reinventing the wheel, but taking something that we might have already done, or we might have heard about or read about, or, you know, heard a celebrity do, and how do we make it more doable on a day-to-day basis? That's how we rewire these positive pathways. And this one in particular has really helped a lot of people that I work with, and myself personally.
So it's like an achievements list. It's like an accomplishment
Absolutely.
list.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because even if it's, I didn't spill coffee on myself, or I got to work on time, or this call was amazing, or my hair was amazing today, you know, whatever it is. I mean, I worked out. I, you know, stood for 10 minutes. Exactly. Because I think the survival response of nitpicking what we didn't do is more natural, because of the pace of life that we are in 2019 versus the pace of life going, hey, what went right? It takes an extra second to think that way, but it is so doable. And once it becomes natural, give it about a month. If someone came to me and they said, if I do this, how long will it take? Everybody wants a deadline, right? I don't know if it's a dental thing or it's a human thing, but it's definitely a dental thing because that's where I get asked a lot. How long is this going to take me to do this? And I say, pick one thing you want to change and do it for 30 days. Because if it doesn't work in 30 days, you're not making it easy enough. And that's a whole different topic on habit retraining, which I do. But yeah, that one thing for 30 days, you will find yourself a lot more positive about the things that we actually didn't get done.
I love that. I really do love that. And it reminds me to do that. I know I'm supposed to be doing that anyway with the business coach I work with, Mark LeBlanc. I'll give a shout out to Mark because I've thought about him a couple times in this conversation, but he has a tool where we keep track of all of our wins. And so you can look back at the end of the year and you can look back and go, holy cow, I did a lot more than I thought I did.
Right.
And another thing that is a Markism that you've probably heard others in our circle say is, done is better than perfect. I love it because it's short and succinct. It really has resonated for me because I never got my book done for years because it was just too big of a project, you know, sort of thing. But actually I'm getting my book on Amazon right now.
Yay!
Yeah, thank you. And it's shorter and smaller. And I took a microcosm of what I was originally going to do, some kind of big primer, but done is better than perfect. And I really believe that. And I believe in a lot of the judgments that we place on ourselves and I think as entrepreneurs, not everybody could be an entrepreneur. We're not all wired that way, right? We're people who go and are really driven. And so this is that flip side that we're talking about today. Is that how do we stay healthy? How do we stay sane? How do we maintain our health?
And I think we can still be really successful. I'm sorry to interrupt, but to that thought, we can still be really successful and be happy at the same time. And if we think that the only way to be successful is to be unhappy, we're living a different life, right? Like, we want to truly enjoy the colorful nature of how we live. And when we add this as well as our achievements, I mean, we'll knock it out of the park. You go to one day and you go, you know what? I did everything I needed to do, and I loved and I lived, you know? And I think that that by far is what we all want, regardless of whether we're in the dental field or not.
I love that. Love that.
Sorry, I had to add that in.
Shakila, so we've talked about, why emotions matter, what holds us back as far as the fears, learned behavior patterns and how to retrain them, and all that really for the standpoint of like helping us as individuals. And you gave us some great tools and tips to use. I'd like to announce, but I need to pick up before I step on. This is so totally unprofessional. I've been trying to dance around this paper the whole time. I couldn't stand on the fill. I would like to take this time to announce that Shakila will be presenting a course at Jumpstart 2020. Woo, woo, yay!
So excited.
On this topic, however, really geared more toward how do we as speakers present in a way that can help, how do we use these concepts to help our attendees be able to get more from the learning, to help them get past their own roadblocks? Can you speak to that for just a little bit about what would we expect? What type of things might we cover there in that course?
Absolutely. So we're going to go into much more detail than what we can do on this live, unfortunately, because the field itself is so big, and it's important for us to understand the why before we put in the how, the action plan. And so when we start getting concepts in, why is this important? We talk about the how, and then we actually, what I love about what I do is actually giving tools, and the tools that can be taken right there and then, discussed, worked out, so that way when anybody returns from the workshop, they'll be able to take what we discussed and literally integrate it into their presentation. So they're capturing people at a place that's not here, but within here. And that is truly what we want. That is how we are wired as humans. So taking a step back from the dental speak and going more into the human heart-centered speak is really what's going to engage the people that we work with on a level that we need more now in 2019 than ever before. So I'm really excited because the tools that are actually being able to use and using them right there and then, that's where I really think that every participant is really going to take off with their message. And I'm excited to be a part of that.
Oh, I'm so grateful and excited for you to come and share your knowledge with our group. I think this is one of those topics that really transcends just working with our speaking audiences, but for those in our group who also consult, it's obviously a dovetail there, as well as the many other ways that we act as a leader in our lives. And so I think this is really important information, and I'm excited for the workshop element of it so that people can actually get their hands on it and work with it and be able to put it into use. So that's at our Jumpstart 2020 conference, which will be in January in Phoenix, January 9 through 11. And I want to be sure we chat about Jumpstart for just a minute. We have some timely information to share around those who would like to participate as a presenter for either the showcase or the competition and would like to be scouted, walk away with the demo video. Be sure you get your application in by next Monday, June 3rd. We will be drawing names from a hat on June 4th. For those spots, there are 26 spots available. You must be registered for the meeting before then. So we've got the URL right here on the screen, jumpstart2020.com. And right now there's also an early bird discount. So you could use discount code EARLYBIRD and save 300. It says 30. It's supposed to say 300.
Well, that's okay because we just talked about perfectionism, and we're going to let that go.
I was just going to say. Thanks for the say, Shakila. So $300 off, which makes your registration $1,800. There also is a through PayPal credit. We have a PayPal shopping cart. So if you're looking for payments for your registration, you can use your PayPal credit account, which is just like Care Credit has a line of credit for 6 months, no interest. You can actually apply for that once you put your registration in the PayPal shopping cart, which has been really cool. And multiple people have utilized that, which makes it easy. So that's Jumpstart. We're excited to see you guys in January. And Shakila, before we go today, a couple of things we haven't talked about that I wanted to ask you. Tell us a little bit more about how you work with us as individuals. If I wanted to work with you, if you were my coach, like what would that look like?
Absolutely. I'm glad you asked that because I get that question a lot, and it's a good thing because it is a little different than what most people think. So when I connect with someone, the first thing obviously is to connect with someone. I have to be able to gauge someone as far as, are they ready to unlearn, to go through the process of increasing your EQ? Are they ready to shift their life? Because if someone's not ready, I'm the first person to say, this might not be the phase in your life that would work. But the people who are ready, that do end up working with me, I administer that emotional intelligence test, which literally is, it's the best tool. It really is. It doesn't do all the work, but for my dentist speakers out there, it's like the x-rays of an exam. It's a nice, important part because all of us are different. So getting a good diagnostic on what we really, really excel at and where we might be a little more vulnerable at, and using our strengths to elevate our weaknesses is really the key. And so what I like to do with that and some certain rubrics of questions that I have is I like to come up with a customized plan of how to go about that journey of increasing awareness, unlearning what we don't know, and then replacing that with what is positive, what is helpful, what is healthy to acquire, and then the tools to maintain it. Because my goal with every client is to not need me after our time together, in the sense that I want them to be able to take those tools and run through their life in a happier and more consistent way, where we're not doing all of this, because that's exhausting. And we want to make sure that every single client comes out thinking, okay, life is a little more balanced. I'm happier with when I have setbacks. I'm really thrilled when I have things that go ahead. And the amazing part of what I do is the connection in which we grow together is really, really amazing. It's something for me personally as a client, it changed my life. And I find that on the other side of it as a coach, it is just as amazing to be on the other side, watching people change and seeing that change. My very first clients that are now speaking on mindfulness and doing all sorts of amazing things. That's what you want, you know, as somebody to grow for themselves. So the process of that, it's 3 months, 3 months, because anything shorter would literally be tough. And even that is a lot of time, but there is a rubric that's customized for that particular client, because no two people are the same. And it is not therapy. I have to add that in. I've had a few reach out that, you know, that introductory call is everything. If anyone is interested, that's how they're going to want to get in touch with me, is, you know, Shakila at theinspireddentist.com, and scheduling an introductory call to see if it's the right fit, because there is a fine line between learning healthier habits and an actual psychological process, which I veer slightly to a different side with.
Oh, got it. Thank you. Thank you so much. And so that's the one-on-one coaching. And then we know you also speak in the industry. Could you just give us a nutshell about your presentations?
Absolutely. So the number one thing I get asked to speak on is emotional leadership, and knowing that to be a great leader as a dentist myself, leading my own team as a business owner, it's such an important skill set to learn how to be emotionally resilient and aware to be able to be better in private practice. And so when I speak on this topic, it's really to not just challenge what we already know, but to also acquire skills and tools to be able to keep the stress low, and to keep and grow the awareness so we can take that into the other aspects of our life. The other thing that I also get asked to speak on is communication. I mean, it all comes together, but it's all, related to each other. Is how do we speak with more empathy? How do we get our point across? And how do we incorporate that into our leadership skills? So it's phenomenal. It's phenomenal when I see light bulbs going off and people go, oh, maybe I should rephrase how I say something in that way. So it's very neat to see.
Well, it's clear you're so passionate about this subject, as well as really well educated around it. It flows from you, which tells me that you're in your truth. You're in the flow for your life and doing sharing your gift with the world. And thank you for being here to share that with us today.
Thank you for having me. Thank you so much.
I want to share another thought with you before we go, and you can kill me later. But I've been sitting here looking at you thinking, I can't wait for the day where you have your own workshop where you train other speakers and consultants on how to utilize this in their life. So I don't know, or I mean, in their businesses. So with their clients, with their audiences, I don't know if you have that on your in your forward view here out the windshield or not, but I think it would be just fabulous. I think there's definitely a need, and I can't wait to watch you continue to grow with this topic. And thank you for being there to share with us in January.
Absolutely. I'm excited. It's going to be really, really wonderful.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks everyone for hanging with us tonight and being here. We do have a question or two that I think are better answered probably in the post around where you had your education, that type of thing. With Shakila will be sure and come out there and answer your questions in our post. If you have any questions for Shakila, reach out to her at Shakila@theinspireddentist.com, her website, theinspireddentist.com. And thanks again for tuning in tonight, everybody. It's always great to spend time with you, and we'll talk to you again soon. Until then, be well.